Senator Ted Cruz formally naming Carly Fiorina as his vice presidential running mate. The former 2016 Republican presidential candidate herself and former Hewlett-Packard CEO Carly Fiorina joins me right now on the telephone. Carly, thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria. Thank you for having me.
You know, congratulations. It was a proud moment watching you up there when Ted Cruz first made this announcement. But I want to get from you is, what's in it for you? I mean, we're going back and forth about Ted Cruz and where he is in the campaign. We hear all this name calling, which I'm going to get to in a moment. What are you going to bring to his campaign, and what's in it for you?
Well, you know, honestly, Maria, I am doing this because I think it is not an exaggeration to say the soul of our party and the future of our nation are at stake. I have said from the moment Donald Trump announced his candidacy, he doesn't represent me and he doesn't represent my party. He is almost as liberal as Hillary Clinton is. Donald Trump cannot be our nominee. Hillary Clinton cannot be our president. I think it's critically important that we have a real conservative as our nominee and in the White House who's going to stand up and fight the system that is corrupt and works for some but doesn't work for most of us. And so that's why I'm standing with Ted Cruz, and I'm going to fight hard. I really believe that's what's at stake now.
And you've got, you know, we're here now going toward the end. I mean, we're looking at, you know, the next couple of weeks as being really critical here. So if not now, then never, right? I mean, you got to do this now. So let me ask you about that, because we're talking about strategy this morning. What will be your strategy to sort of cut through the noise? Carly, we've been talking about all morning how John Boehner, you know, spoke about Ted Cruz. He had those choice words for the Texas senator yesterday. Listen to this for a second. I want to get your reaction.
Lucifer in the flesh. As many Democrat friends as I have, Republican friends, I get along with almost everybody. But I have never worked with a more miserable son of a...
I mean, it is extraordinary to me, Carly, that the Republicans do not stick together. And you hear this kind of commentary from the former Speaker of the House. What was your takeaway of those comments about Ted Cruz from John Boehner?
Well, first of all, I think Donald Trump has reduced the tone of this campaign for too many people. Secondly, one of the things I admire about Ted Cruz is you don't see him getting down in the dirt like this. You see him focusing on policy. Third, John Boehner lost his speakership because he accomplished nothing with a Republican majority in the House. Those comments were completely inappropriate. But here's everything you need to know about both John Boehner and Donald Trump. John Boehner said that he and Donald Trump are texting and golfing buddies. I rest my case. When I say Donald Trump is the system, he will not challenge the system. All you need to know is that Donald Trump is texting and golfing buddies with John Boehner. He's given to Hillary Clinton, both her presidential and her Senate campaigns, a total of 7 times. How do you do that? How do you give money and be buddies with both folks on 2 sides of the aisle? You know how and why you do that? Because you're gaming the system for your own personal enrichment and advancement, and that is the pattern of Donald Trump's life. He cannot be our nominee.
Okay. So there's reality, as you put forth, obviously, everything you're saying. And then there's sentiment, Carly. What's the strategy to cut through the noise to make sure that the messages that you've just shared with us resonate with the American people in the next couple of weeks as we come down to the wire? How are you going to do this?
Well, first, I think the messages resonate with the American people when they get to hear them. Unfortunately, too much of the media never allows people to hear them because it's the Donald Trump show all the time. That's too bad, and it's been that way ever since he got into this race. That, too, is factually correct, and every analysis demonstrates that. On the other hand, I can tell you, I'm here in Indiana. I'm fighting really hard in Indiana, and to your point, Indiana really matters now. Wow, the state of California is really going to matter now in a presidential primary. Good for the people of Indiana and the people of California. You know, Maria, here's an analogy that I would say. When people get to hear this message, they respond to this message. And so I'm going to be out here fighting as hard as I know how. We are drawing enormous crowds in Indiana. Indiana votes, as you know, on Tuesday. But, you know, the NFL draft pick was last night. So let's use the analogy from football. You know, Donald Trump likes to say, well, I'm close, so that's it. I'm the nominee. You know, I'm the nominee. I'm close. I'm going to get close to 1,000 1,237 delegates. 1,237 delegates represents the majority of the delegates in the Republican Party. Well, in football, the 30-yard line ain't a touchdown. The 20-yard line ain't a touchdown. The 5-yard line ain't a touchdown. Donald Trump is going to have to get a touchdown, and he doesn't have one, and he's not going to get one. And so we're going to end up in Cleveland at a contested convention, and when Donald Trump doesn't win on that first ballot, he doesn't win.
Okay, so that's the strategy. What are you hearing from voters in Indiana right now, Carly? What's important to them? What are you doing in Indiana to really make sure to own Indiana come Tuesday night?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Indiana is a place where Carrier just took all its jobs and sent them to Mexico, or many, many of its jobs. And Donald Trump points that out. You know, he stands up in his typical rally. But unfortunately, if you look at the pattern of Donald Trump's business life, what you'll see is a guy who has played that system. That's why so much of his, clothing lines, his ties, and the rest of it are manufactured in China. He's hiring foreign workers in Mar-a-Lago when American workers are standing in line trying to get those jobs. He's talking about raising taxes, not lowering taxes. He never talks about rolling back regulatory overreach. On the other hand, Ted Cruz understands, as do I, that the way to get this economy going and growing again is to restore entrepreneurship and innovation, to make sure small businesses thrive. That's why you have to repeal Obamacare. Donald Trump likes Obamacare. He actually would like to go to a single-payer system, which will force more jobs overseas. Ted Cruz understands that a simple flat tax brings jobs back. He understands you got to roll back all this regulatory overreach that drives people like Carrier out of the country in the first place. In other words, the people of Indiana care about their jobs. They care about their liberties and their freedoms, the right to bear arms, the right to practice their religion freely, and they care about the security of this nation.
Right.
And so we're talking about what you actually have to do to bring jobs back, to secure our liberties, and to make sure that we lead again in the world so that we're safe in our neighborhood.
It's a message that certainly should resonate. Carly, good to talk with you as always. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Maria. Have a great day.
You too. We'll be watching you in Indiana. Carly Fiorina joining us this morning.